multimeters. There are lots of videos on YouTube all about comparing this multimeter with a very similar multimeter and so on and so on. And they're all very good because that's how we find the best one for us. But I want to tackle it from a different point of view, which is the job that you do and the multimeter that I think you should have. And then you'll see whether you've actually got the correct one, or more than likely you've got completely the wrong one. And in over 20 years of our fault finding multimeter course, I had most came with the wrong one. Either because we all go to a merchant and say, can I have a multimeter? I'm going on Georgie's course, Mr. Combi. And they said, here's one here. This is brilliant. What it actually is old stock rubbish that they can't get rid of. But they've obviously seen a schmuck to turn up and they can get rid of it. And they charge them 50, 60, 80 pounds for this rubbish. So this video is all about the job you do and the meter that you should have. Don't forget to subscribe. Not only are we here on YouTube, and we're also here on Facebook. Subscribe. Thanks very much and take care. So here's the selection of 4 types of meter. We've got on the far right there a clamp meter. So obviously we press that button in, put it round the wire, and it'll give us the readings of volts or amps, etc. Then we've got our electrical tester. So that's more in kind with the domestic electrician who puts in plugs and sockets and so on around the house. Then we've got our yellow analog multimeter, which is very difficult to use, and basically nobody buys these anymore. They're used on benches. So if you, for example, have a fan or a component that has to be less than 200 ohms or volts or whatever, if it's above that, then it's classed as faulty, and that meter, the analog one, will actually give you that with the different presets. Those normally we don't touch. And then finally we've got a couple of selections of auto ranging multimeters, and they're the ones that most people use, right from professionals fixing cars, electricians, heating engineers, air conditioning engineers, and of course DIYs. So they're the ones that we're going to look at more closely. When it comes to general purpose repairs, the heating engineer, the breakdown engineer, the aircon, cars and electricians, the best all-round multimeter that I can find is this one here, the Fluke 116. It's got everything that we need. Not only the usual volts and amps and ohms, but it's also got Hertz, which I will explain later. But it also has a thermometer for checking the water temperature, which is vital to some engineers. But it also has a backlight and a hold button and so on. So it's got lots and lots of features that most people need from a multimeter. So if you want to buy one, this is called an auto ranging multimeter because it's simple to use and it's always accurate. The comment that I often get is, whoa, it's expensive. Well, there's a reason, because Fluke make the best. If you want one that's going to last 40, 50, 60 years, you've got to pay for that quality and of course have regular updates and calibrations. as with all highly made instruments. If you buy the other sort that cost maybe 40, 50, 60, 80 pounds, they are one-off. They should last 5 years, because then they'll go out of calibration and give us the wrong numbers. So if you think of it, every 5, let's even say 8 years, that's a long way off, more or less double the price of a fluke. So the saving is buy the best, because it's going to last you forever. I've got a fluke from the 1980s and it's absolutely perfect. It gets recalibrated and off it goes. I shudder to think how many ordinary multimeters I would have used up until then, which would have cost me more. So if you want a good all-round, no. If you want a brilliant, the best multimeter on the planet, I think you should go for a 116. The best alternative that I found is this one here, the XX330. The price of this is somewhere around 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. As always, shop around. This is a brilliant meter to replace any other, because it's got all the features of the Fluke 116 apart from a backlight, but everything else you need at about half the price, which might be important to you. This is the one that we used to use in the training center, because not only is it auto ranging, very accurate, it has a rubber shoe around it to protect it and a stand, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's got the thermometer in Fahrenheit and centigrade. It's got Hertz, and it's absolutely perfect for many people, from DIY to house electrics to boilers, aircon, and of course the automotive one. So it's a really good alternative one. The XX330. So our first look is on this meter here, called a clamp meter. So it's a multimeter because it will measure volts and ohms and amps and resistance, etc. The downside of this one is that it's specified really for the domestic electrician. Very few people outside that world will need this, because it basically measures amps, which is the current used by the appliance. I'll explain volts and amps, etc. later on. But basically, amps are what the appliance, for example, the microwave, needs volts to pull it through to actually work. And we measure those in amps, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Very, very dangerous, and it's the amps that kill people. So I will explain, I will give you a demonstration of how dangerous amps are. So please don't use them unless somebody has taught you in a classroom or somewhere how to measure amps, because it's not simply just pop this on a flex and then there's a reading and off it works. It doesn't work like that at all. So as I said, if you are thinking of measuring the live wire or the hot wire, therefore you need to separate that piece of flex wire into bits and then clamp this over the live or hot wire. And that's how we use the clamp. So no good for repairing boilers or washing machines or cuddly toys. It's for domestic electricians, or where you've got lots and lots of wires going into a bank and you want to know which wire is actually working and has voltage and how much voltage or ampage, which is really what it's for. So that's the clamp meter. When it comes to cars, trucks and all those type of vehicles, they're called Automotive Multimeters. The best one is from the Fluke range, and it's always called 88, A88 or something 88. As you can see here, this does all of the jobs that they need. But I've put in some research, so I've gone to loads and loads of garages and service centres to find out what do they use, how do they actually use the multimeter. Some of them use an iPad, and it's got everything in it. Others use a huge computer. Some of the dealerships, they use these more expensive all singing and dancing finds. But some of the smaller garages use something like this one, the blue Draper one, which is adequate, does all of the work, and it's around the 40, 50, 60 pound mark. Whereas the Fluke obviously is going to be about double that, maybe a little bit more, but it is for life. And don't forget, it has to be calibrated like all of the other ones. So this is the really good one if you've got anything to do with car electrics, mostly on DC and amps. When it comes to general purpose usage of a multimeter, as I said earlier, this EX 330 is possibly the best and maybe one of the most popular on the planet. I don't know, but there is only a couple of them that's any good. But let's have a look at what you should have. And apart from the ACs and DCs, as we mentioned earlier, we need one more thing. All of our meters should be category 3, 600 volts, as it says there. And that's more to do with the leads. They have to be fat enough to protect ourselves from being electrocuted. So we used to get some engineers turning up on our course with little toys, which they got for £10 from a toy shop. But the wire is so paper thin that you could feel it. If you were sensitive, which I am, you just touch the wire where it's touching the voltage and you can actually feel electricity going through the leads. So straight away it had to be recycled, and they had to buy a 330 because that's what we sold on the course day. But it frightens me how many people are missold or misadvised absolutely dangerous instruments. So always remember, you need category 3, 600 volts. Not many of us use category 2, which is 1000 volts. But if you need that, then somebody above should advise you, oh, we need this one and not that one. But by and large, all of us, cat 3, 600 volts, brilliant. One of the functions that I mentioned earlier was Hertz, which was invented, let's say, by Mr. Hertz, who's coming up later on, and it measures frequency. So we all hear our radio station is 88 Hertz or 106 Hertz, etc. But actually it's used by heating engineers and air conditioning engineers. We can determine the speed of a fan or a pump or something else, flow rates of water, for example. I've got a video on that one, and it'll tell you that if you have so many hertz, that equates to so many revs of the fan. Because quite often, if not all of the time, whether it's air conditioning fan or a boiler fan, the manufacturer will not publish the speeds, whether it's in hertz or not. But as you can see here, the lovely people of Valent have given me a sheet, and this is just a small cutout, and you can see that 36 hertz equals 1100 revs per minute. That information is worth $1 million. But not all the manufacturers are as good and as kind as Valent. All the top ones will be, because that's why they're the best. But unfortunately, we're going in there and we don't know if that fan is actually working correctly or not. If it's spinning, it seems all right, but it's not good enough. As a breakdown engineer, I need to know exactly whether this fan is working as it should be, or I need to replace it with the latest version. And that's a guesswork. But we can always say that if a fan is somewhere around 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, it would be a good investment to replace it, the same as a pump or any other component. If it's been working hard for all those years, it would be wise to replace it with the latest version. Don't get it reconditioned, only as a spare, but just replace it to extend the life of that appliance. So Hertz is an absolutely brilliant setting that you need if you're in that world of appliances, boilers, air conditioning units, and so on. We need to shop around to buy the best deals, and this company here, Pass, has been our main supplier for the last 20 years at our training before I retired and just make these adult videos from home. So get in touch with Pass, get a price, or beforehand shop around with other websites or merchants and see where you can get the best deal to buy that basically fluke, if it's the best and you want one to last you for your working life, or whether it's just one that's temporary, that's good for 5, 6 or 7 years at the most. Always shop around and just have a look at Hertz, and please have a look at Hertz. Have a look at Pass and mention my name, Mr. Combi. You might get some discount, which would be nice, as much as they love me, but that would be nice. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and on Facebook. So thanks for watching and take care.